Shiva, Aruna찰라로 Shiva.
One of the greatest quotes ever uttered or written down in the history of humanity came from the 20th century sage Sri Ramana Maharshi in a little note that he wrote to his mother during a period of silence he was abiding in. Now, to give context to this story, for those who don't know Ramana Maharshi, is Ramana at the age of 16 had a permanent abidance in the Atman, the undifferentiated state of consciousness. Call this enlightenment, call it whatever you will. And after this experience, he traveled to the holy mountain of Aruna찰laro, which is considered to be a manifestation of Shiva, in the small South Indian town of Tirubanamalai. Now, when Ramana left his home, he didn't say goodbye to his mother or father, and he just jumped on a train and basically hitchhiked all the way to Tiruvannamalai, and then he went to the holy mountain to remain in that state, to abide in the Atman, and to continue his practice throughout his life. Now, as the years went on, obviously his parents must have been confused, because the young Venkantaра만 had left home. That was Ramana's name before he was given the name Ramana Maharshi. And so there was a yearning for his parents to find him. And so after many years, his mother went to Tiruvannamalai and actually found her son, and she pleaded with him to come home. But he was abiding in a self-imposed long-term silent retreat and was not speaking to anyone. He was just in silence and was not using language to convey anything to anyone. And so his mother was pleading with him to break his silence and to at least explain why he left home and what he is doing. And Ramana still did not speak. And so after a lot of pleading from his mother, Ramana finally wrote a small note to let his mother know the nature of reality itself and the experience he is having. Now, it's not a very personal letter, but this note is one of the greatest statements known to humanity. And it conveys an understanding of how the nature of reality is ultimately one, and how our personal subjective view of the world is actually not the view of the world, and we are not the doer of actions and the thinker of thoughts. There is a lot more going on here. And so Ramana wrote this brief message. The ordainer controls the fate of souls in accordance with their prarabdha karma. Whatever is destined not to happen will not happen, try as you may. Whatever is destined to happen will happen, do what you may to prevent it. This is certain. The best course, therefore, is to remain silent. This note frustrated Ramana's mother because it didn't give her any sort of intellectual reason why her son, Venkantaра만, had left home and become this great sage. Not willingly, but just by the course of life, he had become this great sage by abiding in the Atman. And this is the way the universe unfolded for Sri Ramana Maharshi. And so his mother left after receiving this note because she felt it didn't give her any answers, and she was pretty frustrated with the situation. But little did she know that this brief quote was one of the greatest things ever written down. Now, in the quote, Ramana Maharshi states prarabdha karma. Now, what is prarabdha karma? Prarabdha karma is the karma of past experiences and past lives that is predetermined and manifested in one's present incarnation. Prarabdha can actually be translated as destiny. So this is one's personal predestined karma based on the jiva, the persona system, the ego, its past lives, its present experience, and that influences one's present incarnation. And so because all is Brahman from the non-dual perspective, the Atman, which we truly are, the true self, the undifferentiated state of consciousness, is connected with the ultimate reality of Brahman. Because of this, our life is predetermined. Things will happen as they will, as Ramana Maharshi said, and there's nothing we can do about it. We can be free of that karma if we abide in the Atman and we have the self-realization that Ramana Maharshi had, or if we remain in the jiva, we will continue to create future karma and we'll continue to live life after life after life. That's what the knowledge in Vedanta is, specifically in Advaita Vedanta. the non-dual path within Hinduism. And so from Ramana Maharishi's perspective, whatever we do does not matter, because what will be will be. Now this, in some sense, even if you don't believe in predeterminism, is actually an interesting practice to follow, because when you continue to follow that line of thinking, it can bring a lot of peace to your life, because you are not trying to influence life one way or the other based on your jiva, but you are accepting of how the world is and the way your life is going. Now, does that mean you don't act? That's in some sense not what Ramana Maharshi is saying. But if you are going to act, you need to make sure that it is not from the jiva, but it is from the Atman, where your actions are purified and you act in accord with what is just necessary. That's the difference between the sage and the ordinary person. Also, to add on to that, if we follow that line of thinking of whatever is destined to happen will happen, then we won't suffer from our own past actions, because it will be just how it was meant to be. Now, does that mean you shouldn't focus on becoming a better person all the time? Of course, that's not what it means, but it means that you shouldn't suffer from your past experiences, do you see? Because if you're attached to your past experiences and you suffer according to them, or you extract a lot of joy from them, then that can cause suffering, because you are attached to the past experiences and you're not living in the present moment. So in some sense, because we are fighting reality, we are trying to influence reality in a way that it favors us, we suffer. And so we get in this whole bind of thinking reality should be a certain way. Why did this happen to me? Oh, that happened to me. That's great. We're in this real bind which continues to cause suffering and continues to cause karma and vasanas, latent tendencies and habits, and samskaras, subliminal imprints and mental impressions. So Ramana Maharishi's advice here is to remain silent. Just abide in the self, the Atman, the undifferentiated consciousness, and just allow life to be as it will without trying to influence it, without trying to promote your agenda, your own conditioning onto the world, and just be silent. Now, throughout all of Hinduism, Buddhism, and Taoism, there's often a lot of emphasis on how language distorts reality. Language is a useful tool, for sure, but it distorts the true nature of reality. And the way to come back into abidance with that is actually silence, is to get out of language. Because think about this, our thoughts are mainly made up of language. Think about that. How do you think without language? Most of our thoughts are imbued with language. So we often think with language. And so the more we remain silent, the less we think with language, but we utilize language just as a tool as opposed to making language our whole operating system. Now that's easier said than done, because all of us use language all around the world, and language is not a negative thing. Don't turn it into that. I know a lot of people like to go to extremes. But the overuse of language and the overthinking of concepts and beliefs and your worldview distorts the reality. So Ramana Maharshi is saying abide in the Atman so you can experience reality as it truly is. Not according to how you think it should be, but how reality actually is. And once you are operating from that place of silence, then you don't produce any more prarabdha karma. That is the great boon from this quote. Now, a lot of people don't understand the depths of this quote, but that's what it's all about. It's about remaining in silence, getting out of your own personal predestined karma, and allowing life to be as it will. Now, this sounds like a message from the Buddha or Lao Tzu or Zhuangzi or Shankara, but this came from the great 20th century sage, Sri Ramana Maharshi. Now, the irony here in this story is that a little while later, Ramana's mother came back to see him, not to scold him, not to ask for answers, but she came back as his own disciple. That's the power of this knowledge, the power of the depth of understanding of the non-dual reality of existence, that the true reality is oneness itself. And when we understand the depth of that, we are free then to live our life as we will, and we don't suffer according to the experiences that happen to us. Because as Ramana said, what will be, It's only when we identify with an I that we come into conflict and confusion in that reality when the events of life happen. And so that's the beautiful thing about this story is Ramana Maharishi's mother became his disciple, and she lived the rest of her days on the holy mountain of Arunachalam. What a beautiful ending to a story, and the power of the truth in Ramana Maharishi's words that enlightened his mother to the nature of existence and drew her back to the ultimate truth of reality itself, which ironically was found at the feet of her own son. Shanti, Shanti, Shanti.